Hi everybody, I'm Christian, I'm back. This is the first programming episode of our roguelike tutorial where we are going to be creating a roguelike in Pico-8. So, in the last episode, I already created a file, an empty file. You should know how this works by now. So it's going to be called pork. If we look at this, there's a checklist that we used last time around, but alas, we're not going to need this. So in this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a map and we're going to draw a character and maybe we can move the character. So first, let us do the character. Now this is a bit of a challenge here now because it's kind of like we have to think about what kind of character we're going to use. We're going to think about the theme of the game, and that's generally, I'm sorry for talking again, but I think that's something that's very important to think about. What is your game about? What is the theme? What is the setting? That's something that if you listen to like things like Roguelike Radio and smart people who did roguelike challenges before, who did roguelikes before, who know about roguelikes, that's something that they really stress usually, where it's like if you're going to make a roguelike in this day and age, something that is worthwhile thinking about is how are you going to distinguish yourself from already existing roguelikes. And I think a very easy and very simple way of doing this, well, not easy, but at least very effective way of doing this, is picking a setting that's going to be unusual, or like a theme that's going to be unusual. Now, we already discussed in a previous episode, maybe you haven't watched this, is that we're going to make a very, very vanilla type of game. However, I still wanted to add a bit more spice, a bit more character to this by giving it a bit of an unusual theme. So that's why I called it pork-like, because your main character is going to be a pig. And so I found this character by, again, I'm still inspired by the character designs and the pixel and the tile sets from this guy called Pixel Art M. And he made a lot of designs for his Midnight Dungeon game, which he also shared on Twitter. And there was this one character among those designs that I don't think he ended up using, or maybe he was an enemy, but I kind of like him. It's kind of some kind of critter, some kind of creature, maybe an orc or a goblin. But in my mind, this was a pig. And so this pig is going to be our main character in this game. And I thought eventually while I was working this, I came up with this idea that this guy is maybe like going through a dungeon to obtain a sausage. Now this makes no sense because he's a pig and sausages are made out of pork. But to me, it's kind of like, Bloodborne or something like this, or like Dark Souls, where it's like this dark fantasy kind of situation where you dealing with things that are body parts and blood and stuff like that. But for a pig, that would be pork, right? That's my thinking. So there's going to be a pig who is main character, and a lot of items and characters that we're going to interact with are going to be food related. That's kind of like something unusual and something that maybe not a lot of people have done before. So that's our character. I'm going to copy now an animation that I already created, so we can start this guy moving around. It's going to be like a 4-frame animation. All right, and we're done. So this is our 4-frame animation. This is not the original animation that Pixel Art M did. This is something I tweaked around. The original animation just had 2 frames, and I thought I'm going to push it up to 4 frames. And something that I find very important when doing animation, something that I always tell my students, again, I'm not a huge pixel artist on anything, but there's like some tricks that I find personally very important. And one is like when you're doing a walk cycle, I think it's important to move the head up and down. I think if your character is not moving their head and just the limbs are moving underneath, it looks a bit stiff. And if the character is moving their head up and down, it bobs up and down, that kind of like feels more like walking. If you think about it, if you have like a character, and if you like, what can I do? Like there's like this little pen, right? If you make like a puppet theater, and here's Mr. Pen, how you made Mr. Pen walk, like he doesn't have any legs, how do you make him walk? Well, you make him like bob up and down, right? And so that's the idea here, that you make him bob up and down. So even though we don't really recognize maybe the individual legs, still the fact that his head is moving up and down makes him seem like he's walking. Okay, so this is our character. I put him on the very bottom of the sprite sheet, mainly because I kind of know how I want to lay out the sprite sheet, but also I think in hindsight it's I think a good idea to I'm not sure how many characters I will have in my game, and I'm also not sure how many tiles, how many like environment tiles I will need in my game. So it's kind of good to start with the characters at the bottom and with the tiles at the top, and kind of like work towards the center. It's also a good idea because then in the center you will have like this open space that you can use for bigger sprites like logos or stuff like that. Okay, so this is our first character, and we're gonna keep him around. Now we also want to maybe do a tile for environment, right? We're gonna want to actually generate levels and stuff like that. So you might be wondering what this tile here is. That's something that I think is often not discussed, and I kind of like learned about this during this tutorial. So when you open a fresh Pico-8 project, the first tile number 0, will have like this cross in there. And that's there to remind you that this is a transparent tile. So when you use this tile, this kind of tile in the map editor here, that tile will render as transparent, completely transparent. So if you render the map on top of some other existing images already, that will like kind of like punch a hole in the map, and everything that was underneath the map will kind of shine through. Which also means that we kind of can't use this tile for anything useful. I mean, we could use it for maybe like an empty tile, but we're not going to touch it. So I popped up the original design, the original time map that is our inspiration, that we're kind of like riff off a little bit, to kind of show you some interesting details here. Something I like about this is that do you see how we don't just have edges in the tiles, but we also have there is a bit of a perspective going on. Okay, you see how this character overlaps a bit of a wall behind him, right? So this is supposed to be a tile, an 8x8 tile that has a piece of wall on it, but it's still like a ground tile. It's not a wall. It just has the picture of a wall that is then in a tile above it. And I really like this design. I really like how some ground tiles are kind of like change a little bit and carry on over the walls that are maybe around them. But for now, we're not going to care about like all these decorations. That's something that we're going to do later on procedurally. Right now, I just want to have two types of tiles. A tile that is a wall and a tile that is ground. Just two types of tiles. And we're going to try to replicate those, or like create those first. There's one more thing I wanted to add, and that is if you look at the tiles, how they work, they are 8x8 tiles, but there's always kind of like a black edge at the 8th row and at the 8th column. So you always get a bit of a grid-like look from them. And I think this is a really good effect, that the tiles are graphically not merging with each other, so you don't really see where one tile begins and another tile ends. I think that's especially for a roguelike, where you make individual steps and you want to be able to judge how far you will go when you press a button. I think that's very useful. All right, back in Pico-8. So we also want to be stringent with our colors. So again, I talked to you a little bit about, so this is going to be kind of like our wall tile, right? And that's something I talked about before. Like we're going to try, we're not going to always succeed, but we're going to try to leave the 8th column and the 8th row, we're going to leave them black. So then if we're going to start drawing things here, you can see the tiles. You can actually count how big a room is, for example. That gives us an ability to kind of like judge distance or judge the grid spacing a bit more, a bit better. I don't like the full gray, so I'm just going to add a little bit of a pattern so we can, so we have a little bit of a brick look to this. Something like this. Now for the floor, for the ground, again, the 8th tile is always the 8th row and the 8th column are always black. So if we're going to talk about the floor, something interesting happens where we have a center. Basically, we have each tile is a center, and we're going to just put a dot in there, just a dot. And the dot kind of also allows us kind of like to measure how many spaces you can move, or how many spaces a room has. So if you start drawing things in here, you can kind of like see exactly what the room consists of, which space you can walk on and which space you can't walk on. Also, I think it's kind of a bit reminiscent of ASCII roguelikes, where they use often a dot as a free space, and it kind of like gives us kind of like replicates this look of, you know, rooms being dotted with dots. You can, if you don't like this, you can always change it. Another, like I talked about, I mentioned previously, I want to be very consistent with the colors. So I want to be using this bright gray for anything that you would collide with, for anything that's immovable and will stop you. And anything that you can walk over, any tile that you can just like step on, I want to use this dark gray. And later on, maybe have the different tiles that you can walk over, but I still want to keep using this dark gray. Now this is not quite what we had in like an original template in the Midnight Dungeon, because here you see like all sorts of different things that you can walk over, like the carpet here, for example. You can just walk over it. And it still uses like the same, you know, white color here. But I thought for our project we can like go a bit higher tech and actually use a bit more colors and be more consistent with the color coding. Another thing that I really like here in this Midnight Dungeon project that I want to like copy or adapt is this idea of using this yellow color as things that are interactable. And, you know, I think this is something that comes also from Bitly, which also has like this kind of like engine that is very restricted in the kind of amount of colors you can use. But that's fine. It kind of like gives you like this this very special look, this very deliberate, stylized look. So any character that we're going to have, any object you can interact with, all of those will use like a special color. Okay, so we are basically done with those two tiles. There might be one more tile that I want to create. So each dungeon will have a stairs that you have to reach to go to the next level. And you know, there's like different types of dungeons. Sometimes you have to go down, sometimes you have to go up. For us, it's going to be a tower, so you have to find stairs that go up. And also we want to have stairs that you came from, basically. Like if you go up, you will spawn at some point, and you kind of came from that point, right? So we have to have a tile that has stairs going down. That's where you will be coming. You will be spawning at in every map, and stairs that go up. That's where you have to go to finish this level. All right, and we're done. So this tile is going to be stairs going up, and this tile is going to be kind of stairs going down. Again, this is gray, because we're not going to create a roguelike where you can go back to a previously visited level. That adds like a bit of a more complexity and there's like no gameplay reasons for us to do this. A lot of roguelikes have like the system or like this gameplay mechanic where you have to go down, find an object, and return. It's just not going to have this. If you want to implement it, it's still possible, and actually one of the first version that I made had this, but that's not what we're going to go for this time around. So the stairs are yellow because you actually can interact with the stairs. If you step on the stairs, you will go one level up, but the stairs going down is where you respawn. They are gray because you won't interact with them when you step on this spot. And this is basically all we need to create our first level. So let's try in the next episodes, we're going to try to make this somehow work. I'm going to draw a level, and we're going to see if we can make this work. So this is basically something that has to work now, right? We're going to have to create, like, we're going to draw this level, we're going to draw our character, and we're going to make sure that the character can step on the stairs and go one level up. Finally, let's start doing some code. Let's save this for now. So this is now the moment where you have to think about how to do state machines, how to change different modes, different states of the game. That's something that we did already in the breakout tutorial. And in the breakout tutorial, we did it the following way, and that's something that we're going to avoid. So first of all, I'm going to show you real quick. So first of all, let's go init. And we're going to create a draw function, and we're going to create the update function. Right. So if you're familiar with Pico, these all should feel familiar. Something we did in our breakout tutorial was something like this: if mode equals start, then else if mode equals game, then and else if mode equals game over. Right, so this is like basically something that you need in most games where you have like a start screen, something happens, a game screen, something happens, and a game over screen, something happens. Depending what kind of mode you're in currently, the game will do something completely different, will look different, will react to different inputs and stuff like that. That's the so-called state machine. Now, this is, I think, something that's very easy to understand, like because there's like if statements and there's like modes that we label, start, game over. But that's something that we're not going to use this time around because this costs a lot of tokens and it's not quite efficient. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of something that's really special about Pico-8 and something that I really love. And that is the fact that you can save a pointer to a function in a variable. So it basically means we can create a variable. Let's call it UPD _UPD, and we can assign to it a function. So let's say we're gonna go function update game, and this is gonna be our game, and then there's gonna be other function update end or game over. So these are like two different functions that do two different things. You can assign this function update game to this variable, to a variable, and then you can call this variable, and that variable kind of like will redirect Pico-8 to actually call the function that was saved in the variable. So, so what you do here in the update function, you will just go UPD open and close parentheses. And the only thing that we have to do to change the mode is that we're not going to have a variable that changes the mode. What we do instead is we're going to do something like, okay, let's say like, okay, if HP equals 0. So let's say we went game over, and now we want to switch over to a different game mode where the update function will do this instead of this. Where this is going to be the game over update function, right? In this case, we're going to go UPD equals update underscore game over. And in our actual update function, we're always calling the same variable UPD, and we're just switching around what kind of function is assigned to this variable. I know it's kind of like a heavy subject at the very beginning of our program, but it's kind of like will be something underlying of how we're gonna structure our game. And that's something I wanted to like explain. I think this is like a very powerful function, and that doesn't really cost a lot of tokens because you're just assigning, do one assignment. Oh, there's a problem here. Those open and close parentheses, they have to go. Because if you do this, there's a difference between this and this, right? This is call update game over and take the return value and put the return value in a UPD. So if game over was like, I don't know, return true, then we will get true in UPD. But we don't want to call the function and get the return value in our variable. What we instead want to do is we're going to point at the function. We're going to point at the actual function, not at the return value. So we have to remove those open close parentheses. This is very important. Okay. I hope this is understandable. It's kind of like a very complicated thing. It's kind of like also like shortcutting a lot of things that we maybe talked about, where it's like we're using a variable as a function. How does that work? But yeah. So okay. So an update function will just call UPD, and the draw function will just call DRW. And what we're going to do is we're going to always like just assign different functions to UPD and draw, which will completely change the behavior of our game. Now I think update game and update game over is fine. We're going to create a new tab. This is going to be the tab for updates, and this is going to be the tab for draws. And so we're going to have update. We're going to have draw. Okay, so in this function, we're going to start with update game and draw game. So that's it. Now let's actually do something in the draw function. Let's clear the screen and assign it some colors just so we see something if this works. It doesn't. Why doesn't it work? All right. Yeah, sure. Here W. Again, very important here. Don't use the parentheses after draw game because it's a different time of assignment. Okay, so we're clearing the screen, we're drawing it now with a color. Now, with drawing the map, so this is the first time we're actually doing the map system. That's it. You just use map. So map accepts, like, I think a couple of parameters. You can do, like, for example, you can scroll the map by doing something like 32 0, and then I guess that didn't work. Let's go like 5 0. Yeah, you can see now it's kind of like moved to the side. And you can put it somewhere else on the screen as well. But in our case, because we just use a one screen kind of game, we just do map, and that just draws the map on the screen. Just like that. That's going to be our game. Good. Now we want to draw our character, right? This is our character kind of guy. So yeah, we have to think about, you know, how our character we're going to be look like. This is going to be like a preliminary thing. I also maybe want to, I'm going to create a new function that's called start game. That basically starts the game. If we ever go game over, we want to call start game, and that will reset the game to default. And here we're going to go px equals. Now, we're going to have to see where exactly the start position is, 3 and 5. This is the coordinates of the tile, not the pixel coordinates, but the tile coordinates of where the stairs is. So it's going to be 3 and 5, okay? And later on we're going to change this. This is just like a preliminary thing for us to get started. Okay, it's not start game, start game. Now we're going to go SPR. That's for drawing a sprite, and we're just going to draw this little guy. That's sprite 240, and I'm going to place it in PX PY. Now if I do this, that won't actually work, and we're going to actually talk about why that doesn't work. So now he's in the top left corner, and not at the actual coordinates of the stairs. We want him to start at the stairs. Why is he over there? Well, because when you're drawing the sprite, you're drawing the sprite at the pixel coordinates, not at the tile coordinates. The tile coordinates are, 3, 5, because it's like 5 tiles from the top and 3 tiles from the left side. But the pixel coordinates are way higher. Each tile has 8 pixels, so what you have to do here is multiply the tile coordinates with 5. With 8. Sorry, why 5? 8. Sorry. Yeah, so each tile coordinate has to be multiplied by 8 to get the pixel coordinates. And now you can see that he is being drawn at the right coordinate. Some things I don't like about the way this looks. First of all, by default, Pico-8 accepts black to be transparent, and I don't like this look actually. I don't like how he, his body, like we're using black for him to kind of like outline his parts of his body, and if that becomes transparent, he looks kind of like a ghost. So we have to make the black actually not transparent for our look. So we're gonna go SPR. Is it TSPR? No, PAL T. I'm gonna take 0 color, and we're gonna say it's not transparent. So PAL T is a function that changes which colors in the color palette are rendered as transparent or not. In this case, we want to make sure that the color 0, that's this color here, is going to be rendered as transparent. not transparent, so it's not transparent. The transparency is set to false. Okay, so let's run this, and you can see now the entire sprite covers up the stairs. Now we don't really see the stairs anymore, but it's kind of like a look that we're going for. Like if a character is on a tile, he will just cover the entire tile. Now we're gonna be we're going to ending this episode very soon, but before we end, I wanted at least to get a guy running around on my screen. I think that's a very important start to like emotionally feel like something is happening. So let's get this guy going on. So let's say like if btnp that's update. No, that's I'll put this in update. Oh my gosh, it's already starting. So I put all of this stuff in update game, but actually I want to put this stuff, this drawing, of course, in the draw game function, not in the update function. I made a mistake here. In the update game function, we're going to take care of moving our character around. So button 0, that's actually, we can actually use, like, yeah, this character, this emoji, that's Shift L. You get like this kind of like arrow to the left character, but you can also use 0 because that's the button 0. Then px minus equals 1. So we subtract 1 from our x coordinate, and so now we should be able to move the guy to the left. Easy. So now what we have to do is like copy this 4 times to move the guy in different directions. So 1 is the button to the right. Actually, I'm gonna be using this for now. Just so this is to the left, this is to the right. For the right, we're gonna add 1 to our X position, so he moves to the right. And this is gonna be up, and this is gonna be down, right? Just checking, doing 4 if statements for our 4 buttons. And that allows us to move the guy around. Already looking nice. Good. One more thing, I don't like how the guy is gray, as we already said before. Actually, we want all of our characters to be, or anything that is, you know, interactable, that includes our character, we want that to show up as yellow. So how are we going to make this character yellow? And again, I think we already did this in the previous tutorial. There's functions for this. So I've drawn him because I'm going to draw probably almost everything in this gray color. That's color number 6. I want to turn all of this color 6 pixels in this sprite. I want to turn them into color 10. And here's how you do it. You use the pal function. Pal, all the color 6 are supposed to be turned into color in the color 10. All the pixels from of the color 6 are turned into color 10. Now you can see now everything is yellow, not just our guy. Everything, all of the pixels have been changed. That's because you have to actually switch back. So if you call pal without any statements, without any arguments, it will revert to default. It will also revert pal t to default, just so you know that there's some weird interactions going on. Okay, so like this, it works, right? So now you can see that our guy is moving around, and he's like jumping from one tile to another, and he has that right color. He's not interacting with the tiles yet, and the animation is a bit more abrupt, but we're going to refine the movement mechanics in the next episode. The code to this game will always be in a doobly-doo downstairs, so you can always check it out. See you next time around, guys. Bye bye.